Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. We are with Matt Outlaw, and we are at Santee Cooper here in South Carolina. It doesn't get any better than this, does it, Matt?
No, sir. This is my home lake. I guide full-time right here. You know, I live about 45 minutes up the road on the upper end of Marion. But like I said, I'm guide at Outlaw Outdoors Guide Service. You know, this is my office where I'm at every day.
Wow. What an amazing place. We were out on the water today, and it's just, you know, it's amazing. There's not a lot of building on the shoreline and not very many boat docks, right?
No, well, not on – we were on Moultrie today. You know, it's not many houses there. It's pretty rambling. You get on Marion, you have quite a few houses on it.
Right.
But, you know, they're two separate lakes. They're connected. But both lakes there, I mean, they fish completely different. You know, Marion is the upper lake is my home lake. That's right. Where I grew up fishing. I'm more comfortable in that lake. It's got a lot of timber and standing trees and swamps in it. You know, Moultrie is just more of a wide open lake. It's a great lake. It's got big fish in it, but as you've seen this morning, it can get pretty nasty too.
Even with we're not talking like 25-mile-an-hour winds. It's
6 or 7 mile an hour winds. You know, it can get pretty choppy out there.
Do a lot of bouncing. Not good for live scope. Teaching people how to live scope, is it?
It'll wear your leg out turning that trolling motor.
So let's talk about fishing. Fishing in the spring. So if someone was to come and go on a guide trip, where would you be taking them in the spring, and what would you be doing?
You know, I fish both lakes in the spring. It really depends on, you know, the wind. The wind determines. Obviously, if the wind's blowing, we're not going to be going on Moultrie. But you know, the fish are going to be, for the most part, they're going to be suspended out in open water. We'll have that live scope on, just covering a lot of water, trying to pinpoint suspended open water fish. You know, they're not going to be. You'll have some fish that's on structure for the most part in the spring. They're just going to be out randomly swimming around, and that's one of my favorite ways to catch them when they're not on structure, because you're not pinpointing a group of fish. You're pinpointing maybe one or two fish sitting together.
Right.
And obviously that time of year is when they're going to be probably the healthiest and the biggest they're going to be the whole year.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like I said, it's during, you know, February and March, maybe a little bit of end of January, it's going to be open water for the most part. Like I said, they're just going to be sitting out in no man's land. Takes a little bit more skill to catch them like that, but that's an absolutely fun way to catch them.
All right, let's move into summer. Someone comes in summer, and you're looking at what then?
In my opinion, the summer down here is probably the most consistent time of the year.
Oh,
it's gonna be brush pile fishing, anywhere from 7-8 foot of water to 30 foot of water. There, you know, anywhere you find a structure, whether it be a log or brush piles, the fish are gonna be stacked on them. It's finding the fish that time of the year is normally not the problem. That's pretty easy to find them. You know, a lot of times during the summer they can be a little bit harder to get to bite.
Right.
You might have to use a little bit more live bait, but for the most part, the summer, in my opinion, is probably the most consistent time of the year on these lakes.
Right. Then you move into fall. What happens then?
The fall, they start like what we're in right now, which is maybe one of my favorite times of the year. You know, they're still on brush piles right now, but a lot of your shallow water brush, I say shallow water, you know, your 7 to 15 foot of water, you know, a lot of those fish are easing off that brush. There's still some on it right now, but they're starting to ease off of it, and they're moving out towards those deeper water brush, you know, that 20 to 30 foot of water. And, you know, the more it cools off, the more fish will show up on that deeper brush. You know, you'll have to pull up on a brush and see 300 or 400 fish on one brush pile.
Wow.
And when water temperature starts dropping, you know, they've been finicky for the last 3 or 4 months in that hot weather. When it starts dropping out in the 70s, they start getting a little bit more active. They start biting better. They're starting to get fat for the winter. So typically that's when, this is probably my favorite time of the year. Like I said, you see big numbers of good quality fish.
Yep. Then what happens in the winter? I bet crappie fishing is good in the winter.
It is in the winter. The winter is probably in my opinion, the most inconsistent time.
Right.
You can be a hero or a zero.
Yeah.
You'll start those deep water brush. Those fish, a lot of fish will stay on them through the winter, but then you get into January, they start leaving a lot of that brush, and they start getting into the, late winter, what I call early spring pattern. They start roaming around, but they're real scattered. You can catch. January, late winter is probably when you can catch probably the biggest fish of the year. They're gonna be, that's when you got your chance of catching a 3-pound fish. But they're gonna be a lot more scattered. You can find big groups of fish, catch them today. You go back tomorrow and you might not see nothing. They're moving around a lot. They're chasing a lot of bait, getting fat for the spawn.
Right.
So it's a good time of the year, but it's probably my least favorite time of the year because one is it's cold. I don't like the cold.
Right.
And two, like it's to me it's more inconsistent down here.
So let's talk about lures. So people come in. What kind of lures are you throwing?
I like on these black crappie. I like to go small.
Small.
I like the crappie monster not uppercut, but the outbreak. This is a little tiny jig. You can't hardly this time of year on these black crappie. You can't hardly go too small. Really? The tiniest, the tinier you can get away with, the better. And it seems like, when they're in the spring when they get a little bit more aggressive, you can get away with a big bait. But like summertime and right now they're a little bit finicky. I want a tiny bait, like an inch and a quarter long jig.
Jeez,
it's tiny.
And hair jigs I do
use a lot of hair jigs. I have a buddy of mine that ties some for me, but I do use a lot of them. I use a lot of plastics. Like I said, the crappie monster outbreak is a great jig for this time of year. It's a real small jig. It's actually a bluegill bait.
Oh,
but it works. It works great for big crappie.
So what for people that don't know, the black and white crappie, they kind of behave different, don't they?
They do. The black crappie on this lake, they tend to be ganged up. They like to sit together. The white crappie, and they like most times like on a brush pile. The black crappie like to sit in the top of it. Your white crappie, they don't gang up quite as much, and they tend to sit down deeper in the brush, more towards the bottom. Now that being said, a black crappie, in my opinion, is a lot more stubborn fish. If he don't want to bite, he ain't gonna bite. A white crappie, if it's a white crappie down there and it's a white crappie, you most time you can make him mad enough. You can make him bite. They just seem like they're a little bit more aggressive on average.
And you have good population of both of them here on Santee Cooper or not?
Predominantly black. Your bigger fish are going to be black, but we do have a lot of white fish, and we have good quality white fish. You just, you don't see as many white fish over 2 pounds as you do the black crappie. You see a lot bigger, healthier black crappie on this lake than you do white crappie. It seems like the population of white crappie is not as thick as it was when I was a kid, but there's still, there's times you can still come down here and catch a cooler full of white ones.
Right.
But you got to look at it. It's going to be two different patterns. I mean, their patterns rarely overlap. They're always on a different pattern.
So what's the size limit, and what's the total amount of crappie you can have one day?
8-inch statewide size limit. 8-inch crappie is not a very big crappie.
No.
And it's 20 per person fish.
20 per person.
20 per person.
In general, how many people you take out in your boat when you're guiding?
The most that I can take at one time is 3 people, just because I fish out of a bass boat.
Right.
3 people, it gets a little crowded. We make it work. 2 people is a perfect number. So.
And what are you also teaching like electronics too? Is that the deal?
I teach the live scope, teach them, especially if people that have live scope, if they need help setting it up, I'll help them out with that as well.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the things that you're using to catch them. When you're single poling, are you way out there using a 16-foot long pole, or using a more like an 8 or 10?
Me, 90% of the time, I'm gonna have an 8-foot precision cast rod in my hand. I'm gonna always be. I try to stay 30 to 40 foot off the brush and cast to them, because certain times of year down here, these fish down here get spooky though. They might not swim off the brush, but they definitely can feel your presence, and they'll get to where they don't want to bite. So I try to stay as far off of them as I can. Like I said, 90% of the time, I'm gonna have an 8-foot casting rod in my hand. Yeah,
and what kind of line are you using?
I'm always using 6-pound slime line. That's what I always use.
And that's monofilament, right?
That's monofilament.
Is it high vis kind of?
I use 2 kinds. I use the high vis sometimes, and if the water gets real clear, I'll use the super stretch edition.
Okay.
So
what's special about that? Why is it called super stretch?
Because it's in the name. It's got it's a monofilament, but it also stretches.
Yeah.
But most monofilaments can stretch. But when most monofilament stretches, the next time it stretches, it pops. This line, the Catch Fever not to catch fish, the championship edition not only stretches, it also
Yeah.
recoils. So it's
Oh.
good if you're catching big fish. You know, you'll set the hook on those fish. It's like having an extra drag in your line because that line will stretch and give, so it'll keep that big fish from popping off.
Right.
So I'll use that. Most of the time. I'll use that if I'm fishing a tournament, just because it gives me a little bit extra confidence on keeping those big fish on the hook.
Yeah. So if someone was coming to fish Santee Cooper, what kind of tips would you give them? So they're coming in, they've never been here before.
Be careful, because these lakes, both these lakes are dangerous, especially the upper lake. It's full of stumps. If you don't know, you better idle, because you know, even in the river channel, we have a lot of logs that move around, so you got to be careful. These are dangerous lakes. There's, like I said, there's stumps everywhere. There's not really many places on this lake that's 100% safe to run,
Right.
unless you really know it. And even if you really know it, you still have a chance of hitting a floating log, because they're everywhere.
Right. Wow. So you born and raised here?
Yep.
What's the biggest crappie you've ever caught on this lake?
This one right here is just under 3 pounds. I've never been able to break a 3-pounder on this lake.
You caught a 2.8, 2.9?
I've caught 290s. I don't know how many of them I've caught, but I've never been able to break 3 pounds. I've caught multiple that were a drop of water away from it, but I've never been able to break 3 pounds.
Wow. And of course, Santee Cooper is known for catfishing. I bet you've caught when you were catfishing or something, or when you were crappie fishing, you probably caught a big cat too.
I've caught multiple big catfish down here. This place is full of big catfish.
Do catfish interfere with the crappie fishing?
Sometimes you'll see a brush pile and you'll see a big catfish sail through every now and then. It'll run them off, but you catch some, but
they run them off. They're 70 pounds.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like a shark swimming through. It's gonna run them off. But that's something you got to deal with. This unfortunately, in my opinion, this lake's known for the catfish. And I'm a crappie fisherman. I'd rather it be known for crappie fishing, but it's got some monster cats in it.
So when you were younger, you had the opportunity to fish the lake. Did you fish every day up there when you were young and in the summer? And
every day that I wasn't in school, I was on the water somewhere.
Wow.
Like I said, I grew up fishing the upper end, up in the swamp. That's where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
I grew up fishing. That's where my roots are, and I still love it up there. But I don't know if there's an inch on either one of these lakes that I haven't been over at least once.
Right. What a great place. So tell us real quick a little bit about the canal. So, because they'll see it on the map and they may not understand what that is.
It's all it is a canal that connects the upper lake and the lower lake. It's just a straight shot. You can put anywhere on the upper lake, run down the upper lake, run through the canal, run across the lower lake, and you can go through the locks and go right on the Charleston to the ocean.
Okay.
Straight shot.
Wow. How far is the ocean?
From right here, we're about middle of the canal. Like I said, all you have to do is run down. You're about halfway to the canal, run across the lake. Once you get to the locks, you dumps into the Cooper River. You're probably only 45 minutes from Charleston.
Wow, that's close. All right, well, that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. They carry a complete line of hard and soft baits, so you can check them out online at picolures.com. Matt, they want to get hold of you, go on a guide trip. Where'd they get in touch with you, and what social media do you have?
They can check me out on Facebook at Outlaw Outdoors Guide Service, or they can give me a call at 803-413-8236.
There you go. There you have it. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp, your lures in the water.
Thank you.